Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Bitcoin is breaking out and completing the Wyckoff that I've been drawing for the last month, and this is showing that we are about to be making the next big push into price discovery. Historically speaking, whenever we look at every one of our prior bull markets, right when Bitcoin makes that big push into new all-time highs, we see so much new upside in many altcoins, a lot more adoption, and retail money comes flowing in like never before. I got nothing but confidence that the way the charts are lining up, we're about to be seeing some of the biggest gains inside of our entire bull run happening over the next few months, and anybody that's positioned and prepared right now is going to have an amazing opportunity of capitalizing on this new upside coming very soon. Guys, if you find any value in this video, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, and if you want to see anything that I'm buying, selling, trading over the cycle, links are in the description. Go ahead and sign up on my website. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video, and we have a banger because Bitcoin has been breaking out. We have fully reversed, and this is the moment we've been waiting for to get that next push into new all-time highs. It's always in that first push into price discovery that we see the majority of altcoins outperform, and this is where a lot of our altcoin profit as a whole is going to be made. We're going to be jumping into the Bitcoin chart to start off this video. We're going to be taking a look at Ethereum, and then we're going to go through a couple of our other indexes so that you guys can be positioned and prepared to catch this move once the real upside sets in. This is such an important time for upside. If you guys do want to see anything I'm investing in over this cycle, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. As we jump into this chart, I wanted to go through and really map out the Wyckoff and really where I think that we're headed from this point. So this has been the main chart that we've been taking a look at over the last couple weeks, ever since we were all the way up here and we broke down from 67K. I said that we had the very real potential of revisiting all the way down at the lower end of the support before we get our reversal. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. We came all the way back down. In fact, we even broke below our range low at 57K and went all the way back down to about 53.5. This is something that's typical inside of Wyckoff accumulations. You're going to go through these three lower lows, and it's at that third and final low that we get the spring-loaded bounce and start actually going up. This is something I've been mapping out extensively because of the fact Bitcoin and the crypto markets follow these Wyckoffs so consistently. We can look at them and not only being a reaccumulation pattern like what this one shows here, right before we get the next big push into price discovery, but we can also see a number of them that have formed even inside of the lower part of our cycle at our bear market bottoms. We oftentimes see these as major reversal points in the cycle. We can kind of see the same similarities. The only difference here is this is a reaccumulation, so it's going to look a little bit different. But if you guys notice here, we kind of top, come back down to a support, retest that same resistance, come back down for another retest of that support, and you're mainly just chopping up and down inside of this accumulation range before this third and final spill shakes everybody out. It's virtually the same as the bear market bottom that we experienced down here, where you have a low, you have a high, you have a retest of that low. Now this high didn't come up as much as a normal Wyckoff would, but it still didn't really change anything. This is still the same function leading into that final and third capitulation that leads us into an entire reversal. So this is something I want you guys to be aware of, considering every single one of our bear market bottoms has followed this same pattern, and we're also continuing to see it even inside of our bull cycle in the reaccumulation. So now that we've retested this support, we've had that third low in the phase C, I do think that this is the next push before we're starting to get that big push into price discovery. Now, the big thing we need to remember here is if we're zooming out on a long-term basis and we come out to even on a monthly time frame, this is a very, very bullish monthly candle right here. This is what's called a bullish pin hammer candle, and it's looking like it's only going to continue to heat up from here. Keep in mind, we still have half a month to go until this monthly closes. But when we're jumping into our shorter time frames and we're seeing this Wyckoff accumulation playing out and getting this big buyback, I think that the worst case scenario is we rally up to this range at about 66, 67K. We could see a pullback to kind of come back down and cement this support right around about 61K. And then we would get that next breakout. That's the only real bearish type of price action that I'm going to see inside of Bitcoin right now. Because oftentimes inside of these Wyckoffs, they generally will run straight back up to this range high and then do something like this. So we have to be aware that the upside potential experience inside of Bitcoin can actually take off a lot quicker than people realize. And when we're looking at our higher time frames and we have, a lot more bullish type price action up here at these range highs, it's a very encouraging sign considering on our monthly support right here at 65K, basically 60K, because we've got to keep in mind this is a monthly time frame. But when we topped at 65K and then 69K, this would have been our candle body close at 65. We've been consolidating right on top of that level for a couple months now, basically 4 months at this point. And so even though the market temporarily got back below that, seeing this market close all the way back above bullish, assuming that we're just going to continue to hold this level, I really don't see any potential where Bitcoin's going lower. This will be the first move before we get price discovery. Coming over here and looking at ETH is at a very interesting point because we know that the ETF is going to start trading sometime this month. With all of Bitcoin seeing a lot more upside potential, I think that it's kind of front running that news, and I won't be surprised with here in the next 2 to 5 days or so we get that approval, or what I should say, Ethereum's ETF starts trading live and we get all of that new volume. Because already, guys, as Bitcoin's been breaking out right here in the shorter time frames, we're seeing tens of billions of dollars worth of new volume coming into Bitcoin. So assuming that we've seen all of this upside potential inside of Bitcoin, all of this new trade volume and demand through the institutions, we got to expect that Ethereum is going to be experiencing the exact same thing on the way up. Now, what I find interesting about Ethereum, and when we're comparing it to Bitcoin, I think that both of these are at relatively similar points in their market structure, which if we come all the way over here, it was this move, once Bitcoin kind of broke out of that 25K level and we retested as support here and here, it reminds me very much the same as the consolidation that Ethereum is in right now. If we notice, we topped here, we've held this support, we rejected at the range high, we came back down to retest that same support, and all we did was range inside of this channel. I really do believe the ETH is kind of at that exact same moment of time inside of its structure before we get this move right here, coming all the way back up to these, well, in ETH, it's actually going to be a new all-time high, but it's relatively the exact same price structure that we're seeing in both of these moves. I think that as Bitcoin is going to continue to lead up, we're going to see Ethereum finally run all the way into a new all-time high, and it'll behave something like this before we get just a quick impulse into price discovery. I think that Ethereum is going to be heading to 6K relatively quickly, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see Ethereum upwards of about $8,000 before any major type of correction comes in. Ethereum has spent a lot of time accumulating down here at these lower ends, and now that we've kind of just been chopping here, we held this support, we were unable to actually make a lower low. ETH is actually holding up better than Bitcoin, and it's a very important time that we need to be factoring both of these charts, because if Bitcoin is having a big buyback right here, we've reclaimed our prior range low. This is just following your textbook example of a Wyckoff. The monthly is closing very, very bullish, or at least is shaping up to be bullish. We still have 16 days until that close. This is going to be that point before we get that price discovery type move. This is that last moment before we go into price discovery. And so if ETH is sitting back down in here, we're still waiting for that ETF to start trading. I got a lot of confidence that ETH is about to make a significant buyback. And really, with it doing that, we're going to see it outperform Bitcoin massively. And when we actually pull up the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, we're still working on that same breakout. We're still just coiling tighter and tighter at that descending resistance. But I do think that this is that final moment before ETH BTC breaks out and starts making that next big impulse that we were expecting to see. Because guys, historically speaking, when we're zooming out and looking at Ethereum, Ethereum really hasn't done a heck of a lot against Bitcoin until we're actually in that move into price discovery, right? It's once Bitcoin starts to go into price discovery for the first time, the ETH really starts to outperform. And we can see that right here. Technically it was uptrending throughout this period, but it wasn't really until right here in this final big move, that big impulse into price discovery, that we finally started to see ETH pick up. So, in the last cycle, we didn't have that much upside potential inside of the altcoins because they really just weren't outperforming Bitcoin like we have historically seen them do. With this cycle lining up a lot more like 2017, I'm getting a lot of confidence that this cycle is actually going to behave a lot more like that 2017 cycle, where this next move is going to be one that takes a much more impulsive route, and it's not really going to be lagging Bitcoin as much as the prior cycles, because we know historically speaking, when we're zooming out and looking at the Bitcoin dominance, even if we were to able to get one more high up to like 58%, I'm looking at that as being our reversal top. Historically speaking, when we're looking at this, seeing it trending closer and closer to our log descending resistance, and not only that, but we're inside of a massive descending triangle pattern at that. when we're looking at how much bearish divergence we've had forming here, there's just so much weakness, not only inside of the RSI, but we can see it inside of the MACD as well. You know, the MACD has just been trending lower and lower. And realistically, it's been doing it for over a year at this point. The MACD has been bearish since all the way over in here. So basically, since March of 2023, the MACD has had bearish divergence, and then the RSI has had bearish divergence since October of 2023. So almost a full year inside of the RSI and over a full year in the MACD that we have seller exhaustion taking place. I don't find it coincidental that we have all of this seller exhaustion right at our major descending resistance, and we're also forming this long-term bearish consolidation pattern. It's perfectly lining up that ETH BTC is going to have that next big push, and this will be the first cycle since that 2017 bull run where we're finally seeing the Ethereum BTC pair outperforming, and not just ETH BTC, but I believe many other altcoins are going to be doing the same thing. This is a very unique cycle in the ways where we've spent a lot of time reaccumulating, we've spent a lot of time, building a foundation of support, getting new adoption, getting institutions in there for the first time, and I got a lot of confidence that this is going to be that big cycle where if you've ever been wondering, which is the cycle we need to make the most money in, which is the big one, I really think that this is going to be the big one, the quote unquote super cycle, if you will. I'm not saying that Bitcoin and the Ethereum are going to run longer than any cycle. Instead of a 3-year bull run, we'll be at a 6 to 10-year bull run. I don't agree with that at all. I believe we're going to continue to follow the 4-year cycles, and really up to this point we've done nothing but do that. If anything, we were front running, but the great thing about seeing this cycle, where we're at right now, having this long-term correction that we've been at, if we zoom out here and actually take a look at the 4-year cycle timeframes, we're going to go to a log scale real quick. I'm going to go to a weekly time scale so it's easier to see. When we're taking a look and comparing our 4-year cycles, it's very important that we understand where we're at in comparison to some of these prior bull runs. And if we come and draw a line at every single cycle low, this is where it's going to kind of factor into all of this. Got to draw that one right there. So if we're looking at this, remember, every single one of our prior cycles from cycle low to cycle low has equaled 4 years. 4 years is 1,450 days. This one was a month off, and then this last cycle was a month off. But both of these are following the exact same trend. So inside of each one of our bull markets, we have 4 years from peak low to peak low, and then from peak low to peak high, it's 3 years, 1,064 days, and then we have a 364-day bear market right there. And then the same thing happens here. Peak low to peak high, we're looking at 1,064 days. And then from peak high to the bottom of our bear market low, 1,064 days. So both of our last cycles over the last 8 years have just followed this exact same pattern every time. When we're looking at where we're at today, based off of our cycle low, our next cycle low is projected to be right over here at the end of October 2026. Basically, the end of the year 2026 is to be our projected bear market bottom. So historically speaking, if we're looking at our bull markets lasting 3 years, if we also go from our cycle low and we go 1,064 days, we're basically looking at the end of 2025 as being our major topping point for Bitcoin. And that's going to be following a normal 4-year cycle. So if we're comparing our last couple cycles, let's remove some of these drawing tools, and let's see how long it took before we went to a new all-time high. So from this cycle in 2013 when we peaked at $1,250, from that all-time high to the point of us making a new all-time high was about 1,240 days. In 2018, when we peaked at 19,500, from that high all the way to us making a new all-time high was about 1,100 days. So a little bit quicker, but not too much quicker. And then in this cycle, from peak high to where we made a new all-time high was 850 days. So we were like a year ahead in advance. And this is why I was saying, we could have a potential of having an early cycle top just because we're front running so much. However, because we ended up getting such a lengthy consolidation of 4 months right here, we're currently sitting at about 980 days, almost 1,000 days, fairly close to that same threshold of that last cycle. That one is 1,100 days, this one's 1,000 days. Being 100 days difference isn't that much to make me, question whether we're going to be topping early. I don't think that we're going to be having an early cycle top. I really am leaning towards us having a normal bull run where we're going to be having, a big push into price discovery, maybe another correction, and then we'll do something like this, leading into our cycle top at the end of 2025. This is what I'm leaning towards. I think that this cycle is going to be a much more impulsive cycle than anything we've ever seen. And, you know, our price action up to this point really reflects that. Seeing Bitcoin going and actually making a new all-time high, even with it being just a small one, it did it in 850 days. This one took 1,100 days. This one took 1,240 days. So we have to be aware that there was a little bit of a difference in this cycle, but I don't think that anything changes because of how long we've spent consolidating right here at these prior all-time highs. All we're looking at here is your classic example of an A, B, and a C correction. And I do think that we're about to be making that next big push all the way up to about 100K. We could see a pullback. But big picture, guys, we're just going to see these markets just continue to trend all the way up. You know, we may be seeing Bitcoin around $250,000 per coin. We really don't know what the price is going to be, and it's impossible to predict, which is why I always tell you guys, the best thing that we can do is understanding the time frames of each cycle. Every 4 years, Bitcoin completes a bear market bottom and actually finishes a 4-year cycle. So if that is showing that we still have until the end of 2026 as being our cycle low, we've got a lot of time left, like a year and a half to go, before we're really at our true cycle top, being 1,064 days, around those same time frames, 3 years up, 1 year down. Because historically speaking, that's what it's been. It's been a 3-year bull market, and then once we end up peaking, we generally have seen, you know, a 1-year bear market all the way back down, 364 days approximately. So I really think that we're going to be following those same trajectories this cycle. The question we've had was, well, are we going to be front running to an early cycle top? Or is this just going to be following that normal trend? And because we spent so much time at these range highs, the prior all-time highs of that last cycle, I'm leaning much more towards this just being a more impulsive 4-year cycle than we've ever seen. Because the truth is, we have been, you know, at a quicker pace each and every one of our bull markets. And I think that that ultimately shows that there's just more buy support, more demand. And with this being the institutional cycle, I don't really think that there's much more demand that we can really conjure up aside from retail investors getting here. And historically speaking, the retail investors have shown up once we get into price discovery. This move was very retail driven in the last cycle, and it was also in 2017, which you guys probably can't see that on my screen, but all the way over here in 2017 when we first started to make that big breakout, that was also where a lot of that altcoin hype set in. And Bitcoin actually outperformed a lot of altcoins inside of that final blow off top. So I really think that this cycle is going to be much more geared towards that 2017 cycle, just because of the fact, you know, we spent all of this time accumulating many of the top altcoins that were around for the last 10 years. They're looking just like they did right before that 2017 cycle took off. And I think we have all the buy support that we were basically lacking in the last cycle. We had a global pandemic, you know, we had a hyperinflation, like insanely high hyperinflation. Printing half the US dollar money supply in 1 year was insane. So now I think that we're finally going to be seeing a significant markup in the same way that 2017 was over in here. Coming over here and taking a look at the total market cap of the altcoins, this is kind of a chart I wanted to finish up at because I really think that this thing is setting up for a big way. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. As we've reversed out of this low and we've started to rally up, we could see a pullback relatively soon in here. We could peak up a little bit higher before that happens. But if we were to make any sort of a pullback, that pullback is going to be coming right back down to more or less just reclaim this prior support that we had, you know, before we made this lower low. Because all we're looking at right here is your classic example of an ABC correction, and I do believe that we finish wave C. When we actually look at this, any type of correction will most likely be coming back down to reclaim this wave A as support. And I think that that's really where you want to be looking for new positions if you're waiting for them, if you're wondering when to jump in the market. Any type of pullback that we're going to see from this point is going to be an opportunity to get in. I mean, anybody should have been buying the dip right here regardless, because it was looking like an exceptional buy opportunity across the board. But if you're wondering now, waiting for confirmation, just wait for some type of pullback in here because we're most likely going to end up coming back down to reclaim this wave A as support. And then from there, I think that that's where we get that next big push into price discovery. When we're zooming out and taking a look at the altcoin total market cap, you know, all we did was basically just retest this lower high. And I think that the next move coming is going to be that move into price discovery. Don't get me wrong, guys. Bitcoin in and of itself can actually start running up to 100K. And we might see these altcoin markets kind of doing this, you know, relatively lagging. They're still going up. They're still making higher highs and higher lows, but they're still below their prior all-time highs. I'm not really expecting, altcoins to massively outperform until they also get past their prior all-time highs, because historically speaking, that's what Bitcoin has done. If we're coming down here and we actually pull up the total altcoin market cap, we can see that Bitcoin, made this new all-time high right here, but the altcoins were way below their prior all-time highs, right? And that was the last cycle. They had just barely broken out of their range low. So it wasn't until Bitcoin was already past $40,000 and getting fairly close to that topping point at 65K that the altcoins really started to outperform. So altcoins are going to take their time. This cycle can be a little bit different just because we have more buy support than ever before. I think there's going to be more retail. The economies are strong based off of the numbers, so there's more people that are going to be willing to buy. But we're, kind of at the same point, right? Bitcoin is at this prior all-time high, about to go into price discovery. The altcoins have really just broken out of their range lows and kind of retested that. So I'm not going to be surprised to see, the altcoin starting to do this move here. And it takes Bitcoin all the way up to 100K before we really start to get that massive outperformance. Just be aware of how the cycles have lined up historically. Be aware that this is a long-term game. We still have a year and a half to go. And so as Bitcoin goes into price discovery, I think that we're going to see a lot more upside potential in the altcoins. But the real upside potential of altcoins starts once they get past their prior all-time highs. It might be once Bitcoin hits 100K, pulls back to like 75K, and then starts going back up again, considering that's more or less what happened in the last cycle. Keep in mind, Bitcoin made a new all-time high, ran all the way to $40,000. It pulled back at 40,000, and then once it actually started to make another new high, above 40 and going upwards of 50K, that was where the altcoins outperformed. So it took Bitcoin quite a while into price discovery before the altcoins ever started to do anything. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same thing playing out once more. Bitcoin's already gone into a new all-time high. The next push will be the one that sends the altcoins also into that price discovery. But, the altcoin upside potential is going to set in once they really get outside of that new all-time high, get into price discovery, and that's really what I'm expecting moving forward from here. So guys, if you did find value, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you want to see anything I'm investing in over the course of these cycles, I post literally everything inside of my private group. We've been posting a ton of new signals, expecting that we're going to see a lot more upside potential in altcoins as Bitcoin makes this next breakout. So if you guys do want to see anything I'm buying, selling, trading over the cycle, and most importantly, when I take profits and how I'm going to be planning to take profits, links are in the description to go ahead and set up on my website below. I appreciate you guys. I love you. I'm really excited about the way the markets are looking. Everything's pretty much following along our plan with our Wyckoff. So now all we really have to do is just be ready to hold and maximize our fullest profit potential over this bull run. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.